you, Michael. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, Happy New Year, Oasis family. Thank you. Happy New Year. I hope you all had a good Christmas, like Michael said. We did miss you, but I heard that the roundtables with Pastor John went over really well. So thanks for that. He was entertained and really enjoyed being here with you, he and Susan. We're so blessed to be able to be with you. And thank you to Michael and Larry for leading the Christmas Eve service. So appreciate that. That was great. And we missed you a lot. You guys were having an Arctic blast. We were just having a blast. So we missed the Arctic. We didn't miss the Arctic. We avoided it. So Happy New Year. And I'm grateful that you guys are here today on New Year. I love that you guys are bringing in the New Year with us together as a family. And all week leading up to New Year's Day, there's all these like a year at a glance, like montages, right? Like maybe you put one together for your Instagram or TikTok, but there's all these things like politics recap and things, natural disasters or scientific discoveries and advances, like all these things in the news as we take as we take a look at the year in review, right? It's natural. It's an end. So we look back. But it's natural because today is the beginning. So it's also natural for us to look forward. Yeah, and to think about what's to come. What does 2023 have in store for us? And you looking forward, it usually brings hope of new beginnings, right? A fresh start. We like that because some of us are just over 2022. We were over 2022 before 22 was over, right? Like we are so excited about 23. So are like New Year's resolutions still a thing? I don't feel like they are. I mean, maybe they are, but certainly goals. I'm a goal setter. And so even for work, like for 2023, I had to set goals and meet with my boss, go over goals. So goals are a deal. So as we are looking at 2023, it's natural for us to look forward, set goals. What do we want it to look like? How do we want it to be? What do we need to do? And so as we head into the new year together, may I suggest a mantra for us? And you can take it or leave it, but it's something that I like to do when I have a chance or an opportunity to reflect, evaluate, and set goals. And here's my challenge for us for 2023. Dream big, start small, and keep moving. That's it. 3 things. We're done. Dream big, start small, keep moving. It's a great motivational poster. It really is. But there's a depth of truth in each of these statements that really is profound. And I love them so much. Dream big, hope, right? It communicates hope. We have something to look forward to. We're excited about the future. There's something that we can hold on to and dream about. And dreaming is good. It gives us energy. It creates momentum. And starting small communicates execution. We actually have to do something about our dream to make it happen. So hope and execution, and then consistency. We have to keep moving. We can't dream something and start it. How many of us have 47 unfinished products or projects at our house? Barbara laughed. Right? We have to keep moving in order to accomplish the goal. So dream big, start small, keep moving. Hope and execution and consistency are all things that we see. Beyond the surface of this, if we look a little deeper and we think about dreaming big, though, and when we move in our God-given dreams, according to this, as we look at this mantra, there are times where we're going to want to stop and we're going to want to give up, right? Because keep moving implies that there's going to be challenges, there's going to be pitfalls, there's going to be roadblocks. There just is. It's called life. And so that keep moving part is so essential to it. So dream big, start small, keep moving. It's not just a great motivational poster, it's biblical. And I love this story. I love the story of the temple in the Old Testament. You see, the start of the temple was with King Solomon. And King Solomon, it says, was the richest, wisest king in all of the earth. He's a big deal. And so he's instructed to build a temple. And so King Solomon's temple, King Solomon, the richest, wisest man in all the earth, is going to reflect the richest, wisest man in all of the earth, right? And so it's very lavish and ornate, and he only uses the best materials, the most expensive and rare materials as he builds this temple where they can worship. And it's King Solomon's act of worship, an act of honoring God as he creates this place for the people of Israel to worship, right? So it's ornate. It's a big deal. It's lavish. It is something to behold. And it lasts for 400 years. So he did all right in building it, right? We use the best materials. It's going to last a while. And then, right, it lasted 400 years through battles and sieges. It lasts. But then the Babylonians came in. And the Babylonians invaded Israel, and they conquered Israel. And they demolished the temple, and they devastated not just the building, but the people of Israel, right? They took the Israelites out of Israel, and they moved them to Babylon, where we know the Israelites were in exile for 70 years. Crushed. The people crushed their building, and that's where they stayed, 70 years. But the Babylonians had enemies. You know that saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? Yeah? Okay, well, the Israelites' friends were the Persians because the Persians were enemies with the Babylonians. The Persians invaded Babylonia, and they conquered, and therefore released the Israelites and let them go to, I said it wrong, Babylon, not Babylonia. So they released the Israelites to go back to Israel. So the Israelites get to return home after 70 years. And now, you've been gone for so long. You ever come back from vacation and you're wanting to go to a clean house? Do you ever leave your house clean when you go on vacation? I try to. And you come home to a clean house and you're like, yes, I'm relaxed. They came home. It wasn't vacation, and it certainly wasn't a clean house. 70 years of just decimation to their land, their infrastructure, everything. They came back to nothing. And so here they are, they're returning home. Dream big. The Israelites just had to dream practically. They couldn't have a big dream. Their dreams were like, hey, we need a house, we need businesses, we need farms and crops to feed our people. So they get to work, and they work, and they work, and they work, and they work, just to start laying the foundation to bring back life, the basics of life up and running again. Yeah? So here they are after several years of doing the work and work and work to bring the infrastructure of Israel back up. Homes and businesses, fields and crops. It's been about 20 years. And a couple of prophets hear from the Lord, and they call Israel out. They're like, listen, you've been working on your own houses for a long time, but the house of the Lord, the temple, it's still laying in ruins. So let's put our efforts into rebuilding the temple, the house of the Lord, our place of worship. Let's rebuild the temple. There's Israel's big dream, right? That's a big dream. The practical dream is, hey, let's rebuild the infrastructure. Let's get it up and running, farms and crops and homes and businesses, right? Building the temple, that may have seemed like a luxury, not necessarily a necessity, because they needed a roof over their head. And sometimes we may identify that too, where life hits and we're struggling and we're like, we're just trying to get back on our feet, man. We just need the practical dream. We don't have the luxury of trying to rebuild our spiritual life, right? And that's what the prophets are saying is like, hey, let's put God back at the center where he belongs. Let's give him a home and a place where we can worship. And so, like Israel, our big dreams sometimes get lost in that attempt, right? We're just trying to fight to survive. But God didn't create us just to survive. He said, go be fruitful, right? Thrive. So, Israel's poor. They're recovering. They're working. They're broke financially, emotionally. And the prophets are like, hey, let's stop all this and rebuild the temple. Okay. Great, right? Because the image that pops into their mind of rebuilding the temple is Solomon's temple, that big, grandiose, super expensive, ornate, lavish building That's what they know. That's what they're thinking, right? Let's rebuild the temple. And they think, rebuild the temple? That's a huge undertaking. That's a big ask. So Haggai, the prophet, clarifies. He says, listen, this temple that we're going to build is going to be better. And not because it's ornate and lavish like Solomon's temple. It's not going to be as grand, but because the glory of the Lord will fill it. Let's put God back in the center of our community. And so the people obey, yeah? And they start to build. And it's slow and it's tedious. Just like everything else that they're rebuilding, right? It's slow and tedious. And I don't know if you know this about the Israelites, but they're discouraged pretty easily, right? They're a nation of grumblers and complainers. And so they are discouraged because this work on the temple is just so slow. And it feels like it's imposing on their practical dream of establishing the infrastructure. Ever been there where you're discouraged, even now? So that's where we're going to focus today. That sets us up for our story today. We're going to be in Zechariah chapter 4. So if you have a real Bible, you're going to open it up to the New Testament, Matthew, and go back into the Old Testament 2 books. Past Malachi, you'll find Zechariah. We're going to be in chapter 4. So Zechariah, along with Haggai, is one of the prophets that's encouraging the people to return to the Lord. It's that relationship with God that will make the blessings flow in Israel once more. Yeah? So let's bring back that relationship with God. So here in Zechariah chapter 4, Zechariah is sharing a vision that he got from the Lord. And the Israelites have obeyed, and they've started to rebuild the temple. And they are actually at the point where they just finished the foundation. They finished the foundation. Like, that's a huge task. But it's been a task that's been slow and tedious, right? Brick by brick. And there's so much more to do. And so our grumbling, complaining nation finds itself once again discouraged. So here in verse 10, Zechariah shares a word from the Lord. Do not despise these small beginnings, for the Lord rejoices to see the work not done, the work begin. To see the plumb line in Zerubbabel's hand. This is where we see the biblical principles of dream big, start small, keep moving. Right here in Zechariah, as the Lord is encouraging the people of Israel to rebuild the temple, to put God at the center, right? So here, their big dream, rebuild the temple. And not Solomon's temple. That's been clear. We're going to rebuild a temple, the temple, to put God back at the center of our hearts, of our lives, and of our community. So that's a huge dream. For them, it's taken them almost 20 years to rebuild their infrastructure-ish, right? They're still in process. And so here they are, they're rebuilding, and they're putting it on pause so that they can start this temple. And how are they supposed to start building with far less money, right? They're not Solomon. Far less materials, far less everything. Sometimes we get there too. We feel like we have this big thing ahead of us. And where do we start? What do we do when things aren't the way they used to be? Maybe in our marriage or in our spiritual life or in our worship. And Zechariah gives us some insight. He says, basically, start small. Lay the foundation. And to lay a foundation, it takes a while to gather the materials, to measure, to put in the labor, to make sure everything fits right. Stay focused. Don't be discouraged. Lay the foundation, brick by brick, because God rejoices in seeing the work finished. No, God rejoices in seeing the work begin. Start small. So, the next thing is to keep moving. And it's easy to overlook this part, and I don't want us to miss this because this is a very big deal, yeah? Zerubbabel is the governor of Israel at the time. There he is. And he's holding a plumb line. Do you guys know what a plumb line is? It's like a string with a weight attached at the bottom. It's a measuring tool. It's a building tool. And it does not measure or help to build the horizontal foundation because that's already finished. He's holding a plumb line in his hand because they're about to build vertically. They're going to go up. We've got to keep moving. We can't stop with a foundation. We don't have a big dream and just lay the foundation and that's good enough. No, keep moving. We're going to build up. Let's go. It's time to move. Keep moving. So with this plumb line in his hand, it communicates God is pleased to see the work begin. Let's continue. Let's go. So eventually, the Israelites did finish the second temple. And they were right. It wasn't as grand as Solomon's temple. It just wasn't. But it was better because God filled it with his spirit. His spirit dwelt in the temple. And they put God back. This physical building helped to remind them to put God back in the center of their daily lives, individually and as a community, just as it was meant to. Listen, sometimes we spend a lot of time looking back at times when things were better, right? Back when our lives were fuller or we were happier. I don't know about you, but like COVID, post-COVID, the term, when things get back to normal, I was like, that's like the worst ever. Because the fact of the matter is that things are never going to be back the way they were. Things will never be back to normal. That was then. This is now. This is different. So sometimes, if we never look at what could be, if we spend all of our time looking back at what was, we'll miss the opportunity to move forward in what God has for us next. And so sometimes we have to start something new because we can't do the thing that's old, right? That's over. It's been crushed. It's done. Something new. It's time to move forward into what God has for us next. And so as we move into 2023, what does it mean for each of us to dream big, start small, and keep moving? What's the Lord asking of us? Is it something new? Or is it rebuilding something? Is it spiritual? Is it mental? Is it emotional or physical? Or is it something that's going to put God back in the center of our lives? Right? So we get to dream about what that means. And dreaming big, it means we have to stop and allow ourselves the time to actually dream. And sometimes we're busy. We don't give ourselves that space to be able just to dream and ask the Lord and listen. Like, Lord, what are you saying? What do I get to do? What do you want from me? What can I do for you? And then once we have that dream, we've got to keep moving, or we've got to start small, right? Where do we start with it? Because if we don't start, then a dream just remains a dream. If there's no action, it's just a dream. So in order for us to make that dream a reality, we actually have to start. Start small. What's one small thing we can do, one small stone we can lay, right? To make this dream start, because God is pleased to see the work begin. And then we keep moving, right? How do we ensure that we keep moving? Do we need to get an accountability partner? Join some sort of group? Have Siri remind us every week or every month or whatever, so we don't get distracted? For sure, we're going to celebrate victories. For sure, when we lay that first cornerstone of this dream. We're going to do one thing, and we're going to celebrate. Because when we celebrate those small victories, it leads us to the next small thing. And then we're going to celebrate that, and it leads us to the next small thing. We're going to celebrate when we get some of the work done. Dream big, start small, keep moving. Maybe you've seen this image or a similar one, right? Giant companies that have started when they were just in a garage, What's your big dream? Did God ask for you in 2023 to start a business in your garage? Are you the next Amazon? Fantastic. Let's be friends. Tell me you need an investor. Or maybe it's not that, maybe it's not that ginormous. In your head, you're minimizing God's big dream for you. You're like, I think I'm supposed to start a Bible study, but that's way outside my comfort zone. But I feel like that's what the Lord's calling me to do. Great. That's your big dream. That's fantastic. Is it to reconnect with an old friend? Like, make sure that you have relationships that are strong where people are pouring into your life that speak life into you. Maybe it's that. Maybe it's taking up karate. Grant, I'm looking at you, Maybe it's to travel more, or maybe even a missions trip, right? Like, what is God's what's a God-sized dream that you have in your life? This morning, we're actually going to take some time to reflect. We're going to take that time that's precious to be able to stop and to dream. And it's going to be a few minutes, but we are going to give ourselves some time to pause and reflect and to look forward and to dream about 2023. And so we're going to write a letter to ourselves. Now, you're like, what does that mean? Listen, what you do here and how you do this is completely up to you. We're going to hand out paper. Barbara's going to walk around, and Mason, thank you so much. And we're going to pass out paper and envelopes and a pen. If you want to grab the Bible in front of you or hard surface, you're welcome to. And this is what we're going to do. You're going to write a letter to yourself, and then you're going to fold it up, and you're going to put it in the envelope. You're going to address the envelope to yourself, and we're going to collect these letters. No one's going to read them. You can write whatever you want, but dream big. Put your dreams for 2023 in this letter. And maybe you want to take, this is my first small step, whatever. In the summer, so June, July, we're going to mail these back to you. Kids, these are for you too. These are fun. I had a college student once put $5 in it because she's thought, well, in July, I'll probably be poor. So you can do whatever you want. And you can address this to yourself. You can say, oh, dear Linna, like a letter to, well, don't put dear Linna, but your name. Or you can put it as a prayer, dear Lord, this is what I want to see. This is what I feel like you're saying to me. And then you're going to write the letter, seal it, address it. We're going to collect it. And then in the summer, we're going to mail them back to you so that you can say, man, in January, I felt like the Lord was saying with this, and I forgot. I've gotten distracted. Is that the dream the Lord put on my heart? Do I need to return to that? Do I need to put that back at the center? Or maybe you're like, whoo, I'm so much farther in this. That was done in February. Man, I've gotten bigger dreams since then, whatever that is. This is just a good space for you to you and the Lord, just to spend some time together to write out your big dreams. Maybe you want to put starting points in there. You can do this bullet point. You can draw yourself a picture. You can, write letters in your fancy handwriting or your horrible handwriting. Spelling doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see this, okay? So as we're passing out paper and envelopes and pens and gathering hard surfaces, you guys are welcome to write as soon as you start. I'm going to pray for you as we do this, okay? Lord, as we enter into 2023, some of us have already taken the time to think about what this year looks like, and some of us have just been too busy with December to even think about it. So, Lord, as we pause this morning and just surrender our lives and our year to you, Lord, reveal your heart for what you want us to do this year to us. Lord, this is a space where we can be free with you. Help us to hear your voice. Holy Spirit, minister to us during this time. We bless you. We praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.